Buonasera e benvenuti a questa nuova stagione, a questa nuova serie di episodi di BoeganLIVE. Siamo con Domagoj Korais, io sono Antonio Giacomin della Commissione Grotte Eugenio Boegan. Questo primo episodio sarà un po' particolare perché sarà in lingua inglese ed andremo ad esplorare, ovvero a sentire il racconto di Domagoj dell'esplorazione delle ice caves. So I'm going to switch in English because this first episode will be in English, totally in English. The presentation will be for our international guest, and welcome to our guest followers on Facebook page and YouTube channel of Commissione Grotte Eugenio Boegan. I'm Antonio Giacomin and Domagoj Korais. Both of us are from the Commissione Grotte Eugenio Boegan, members of this caving group. So today we are going to talk about caving in the ice with the presentation done by Domagoj. So Domagoj, introduce yourself first of all, and then go ahead with your presentation, and we'll see you later.
Hello to everybody. My name is Domagoj. I'm a caver from Trieste. Actually, now I'm living in Ljubljana and caving with the Slovenians as well. And today we are gonna talk a little bit about caving in glaciers. So, exploring the hidden gems hiding beneath the surface of the Gorner glacier. And I will present the results of the 2021 ice caving expedition. So what are the topics that we will discuss about today? First of all, a presentation of Its Majesty, the Gorner Glacier itself, and then the expedition goals, how it was organized, and the relative logistics. As we can see, our friend this pic was made the first day of the expedition, and we weren't quite sure what we were doing under the ice. So where are we? Here we can see a map of northern Italy, Switzerland, Slovenia. We are here near Zermatt. As you know, Zermatt is an extremely cheap location in Switzerland, so it was quite interesting to see how it looks like. This is the glacier. Even without caving, just being there, the place is really amazing. You are between Matterhorn on your right, the Cervino in Italian, and Monte Rosa on the left. The view is really majestic. Here we can see where we spent our week, so our base camp. I know that it's not clearly visible, so let's try to zoom a little bit. Then we start seeing some patterns on the ice. We see the moraine, but still I'm not able to see where the ice camp is, where the camp base is. So let's zoom a little bit more. Okay, now it starts to be clear that there are some people there, some tents, and finally we managed to see. So I think that this was the only shot that I have made with a 300mm lens, but it was worth it. And the scale is really amazing. I mean, those are people, huge rocks, and the whole glacier is just impressive. So home sweet home, here you are. Talking a little bit about glaciers, we all know that we had the COP26 conference this month, and so we can check through satellite images how the glacier changed in the last 50 years. So on the left, we have a 1976 image, and we can see that the extension of the glacier was much, much bigger than today. This is a 2021 Sentinel-2 image. Images were downloaded by using Sentinel Hub. So if you're interested in doing this kind of comparisons, you can use this tool. What is interesting is that not only the head retreated, but some parts of the glacier really disappeared. And like always, when you are boot on the grounds, you can notice that the red circle, for example, is this one. The picture was made during this camp in 2021. And you see there is no ice, while 50 years ago, this was a full-fledged piece of glacier. The same applies for this center area and for this yellow area here. So this was basically, there was another part of the glacier merging with the main one. And now all of this is gone. So the main point here is that I really think that we need to cave as much as possible in glaciers now that it's still possible, because we don't know in the future how long this will be possible at all. So regarding caving, here we have a map provided by Jeff, the organizer of the camp, where we can see some of the objectives of the expedition itself. So there are the moulins, that are caves digged by water in the south east part. Then we have some contact caves here and on the head. And then we have some meanders that are basically some canyons on the surface that are really interesting and nice. And as a reference, here was our base camp. So we have those three types of objects that are interesting for cavers. So moulins, bedières, and contact caves. This is how a moulin looks like when you see it from the surface. So this is basically a hole that is made by water. So the glacier is melting, and the water on some points starts going under the surface. And while doing so, it creates these wonderful and incredible caves. So they are very peculiar when you are into them. And the bedières, these canyons, that I know they are not extremely common, so you will not find them in all the glaciers. And so the Gorner Glacier is a nice place if you're interested in this kind of objects. As you can see, with the scale, with the people, they are really big and impressive. And finally, contact caves. So they are created where the glacier touches the rock, and because of the difference in temperature, the glacier melts, and you can basically walk under it. And what is really nice is that sunlight passes through the ice, so everything acquires this bluish color, and it's really impressive to be there. It's the feeling is similar to be underwater, at least for me, but you are not, of course. I mean, you are, but the water is frozen. So it's a very peculiar and nice experience. So the expedition itself was between the 16 and 29 October of 2021. I participated only on the second week, so I wasn't present during the first week. Organized by Jeff, and during the 2 weeks, 26 participants joined the whole expedition. What is interesting is that it's really nice that it's organized based on the free will of the participants. So the responsibility, I mean, Jeff did a wonderful work in order to know that everybody has the things that are needed, but the auto-organization really went well, in my opinion. So each of us provided the tools necessary to explore the caves. So somebody brings some rope, others bring some ice screws or ice axes, and Jeff provided a very important tent for the kitchen where we could eat in the evening. But overall, the whole expedition was really based on the personal responsibility and auto-organization. So thank you, Jeff, for the amazing organization. And here you can see him in action. He makes wonderful photographs, and you can find his books about glaciers that I really liked. So the expedition goals were those three: exploration, topography, and photography. So exploration, from the exploration point of view, okay, and surviving, but don't tell that to my boss, otherwise I will not have holidays anymore for some time. So exploration is, there are some similarities and differences with normal caving activities. So there are mostly two things that you really need to care about while exploring moulins, and those are water and sun. As we all know, water makes you wet, and you don't want to get wet at -10. And sun can melt the ice around your ice screws. So if this happens, the ice screws will not hold anymore, and you will be in troubles. So fortunately, there is a simple solution for this, and the solution is to wake up really early so that you can start and then the exploration of the Moulin in the morning. So now, and additionally, there aren't really many differences with normal caving. So the main points are that you can rig quite in a freestyle way, because the ropes are not easily damaged by the ice, and you can put the ice screws by hand where you want. So it's really a nice experience, because you can get really creative where you rig and how you rig. Additionally, with crampons, you can do small steps, and you can put your feet where you want, and they hold. So I would really say that it's an extremely funny caving, and a really enjoyable experience. So let's see how a typical day on the Gorner Glacier looks like. So we say that you wake up quite early, around 6:30, and yes, it's cold, it's -9, -10, and you can clearly see from my face that it's not so enjoyable. You really need some commitment to go out from your sleeping bag. Then you have a fast breakfast. Where, as you can see on the left, we had a jet boil party basically every morning and evening. So we bring some jet boils because they are more efficient, and because we are fancy cavers and we like fancy tools. Additionally, there are some animals going around, especially I'm speaking to you, fox, that ate my breakfast things. So leaving your food unprotected can have a consequence. For example, that you don't have things for breakfast anymore. I would like to stress the fact that the food was in the front of my tent. So this fox was really brave and really liked oats, to my disappointment. So how does it look like when you wake up? It's still dark, there is still no sun. So you start looking around, put your stuff, you enjoy the view that it's really mesmerizing. Here we can see the Orion constellation and Matterhorn and Gigi checking out how does it look like. Then you put your crampons to pass on the glacier, because without crampons you really can't do one step. So they're really mandatory. Walking to our objective, and those morning walks are really nice because the light is still not so strong, and you just hear your steps crashing those little crystals on the surface of the ice, and you have adrenaline because you don't know how the next Moulin that you will explore looks like. So it's a very nice and thrilling experience. Then you can see the light changed because you are quite slow in moving on the glacier because of the irregular terrain. So when you reach the point, this is M8 Moulin, it's already, the sun is already starting to get out. And then you start rigging. So as always, rigging is basically a question of organization. So you need to organize all your tools. In this case, a lot of ice screws. Usually for a Moulin, depending on how deep it is, you will need around 30, 40, 50 ice screws. And if you think that each of them is a 70 euro, you can do a fast math of why it's good that everybody brings some of them in order to be able to have enough of them. The starting point is usually made by, no, not usually, it's always made using 3 anchor points for security, and one big loop of rope, or with some lunges like in this case. Additionally, the ice screws then are covered with some snow and ice in order to protect them from the sun and to have more time when the sun is out to avoid them to melt the ice itself. And this can happen incredibly fast. So it's not just a theoretical issue, but it's a practical issue as well. Once that you set up the starting point, the second step is to put another 2 points just after the border of the Moulin. And all this is done by hand. And I think that this is really amazing in this ice caving, that you don't need a bore machine, you don't need knotting, you don't need the batteries. You just need your hands and ice screws. And you can rig very fast, very efficiently, and really enjoying the experience. In all these pics, you can see that Gigi is really happy about the activities that he's performing. Then, when you rig the initial pit, the exploration starts. So you go down, and usually what happens is that you have an initial pit of around 15 to 20 meters that intercepts a meander that is horizontal, and then this meander can either close or continue. And this happens because the water that falls here needs to find a way to continue, and then it just flows. And for example, here we have found this meander, so we started exploring it. And one difference with normal progression in caves is that you are almost all the time on the rope. And this is because first, you don't trust the ice so much. And even where there is a flat surface where you can walk, this flat surface could be just a couple of centimeters of ice, and under it you can either have void or water. So in both cases, you don't want to fall there. And this is why you need a lot of rope in order to explore those caves, since every meter needs to be covered. Here we have an upper view, and we can see Felix joining us from the surface. So everything is the same as normal caving. And then the meanders are like this. So they are quite narrow. And when you're inside of them, you really start thinking, but wait a moment. We know that glacier moves. And I'm behind some wall. I mean, I'm between two very narrow passages and of ice. So what happens if this whole thing moves while I'm here? And then you stop thinking and you just go and you just move over, because it's so nice that you really don't care. And okay, kind of joke, because it never happened that the glacier squeezed somebody. And then you continue, and in this case it was this Moulin M8 that provided us the bigger joy during the expedition. The ambient is very nice, and we have found after horizontal meanders other pits that continued to go down, down, down. So we were able to reach minus 77 meters from the surface. That is quite deep, being a cave in the glacier. And of course, since we are cavers, we love to survey caves. So surveying is done like in a normal cave, so using a disto. and here we can see Felix taking notes about the cave with a disto in his hand. So here is really typical and classical surveying. The team is made by two people. One is making the points, and the second is using the disto and writing down the measurements. Then, since you want to be out before the sun is too strong and before the water starts to flow into the Moulin, you go out, usually around 11 or 12, depending on the Moulin, but in some of them you can spend more time, in others you shouldn't. It really depends how much water enters it at any moment of time during the day. For example, in this Moulin M8, there is a small river going in at around 12 o'clock, while in the morning there is zero water going in. So you really don't want to find yourself in a waterfall of water at 0 degree. And this is why while you rig, you really try to understand where the water will flow after, and to avoid being there at that moment. Then a nice walk back to the camp, looking at the Matterhorn and walking on this frozen surface. I can ask you to think about if you feel that this surface of the glacier reminds you on something. We will see at the end what I'm reminded of. But just think about those waves on the surface. Then you made your day, you explored, you made some survey, you made some photos, and it's time to be back to the camp. So you are in the camp. First thing that you do is that you dry everything, because everything needs to be absolutely dry. If you don't want that during the night, when you have -8, -9, it freezes. And once that it froze, you can't use it anymore. So, for example, ropes are useless once frozen. You can't do a knot, you can't do nothing. The same applies for caving gear and tools or photo gear. So you want to really want to dry everything as soon as possible. Then, of course, there is eating. You are all the time hungry because it's cold, so you're burning a lot of calories, you're moving all the time, so basically you spend all the time eating and drinking something. Additionally, here we can see that the usual caving traditions are respected, and we don't like spoons but use knives to eat soups. And as a true Italian, I can't do nothing without my coffee. So even if I had really a mastodontic backpack, I bring my cafetiera with me to enjoy some nice espresso, whatever I wanted it. Then, after eating and drying, it's time to organize the tools for the next day. And so this means counting the ice screws to be sure that you have all of them, all that are needed. So the surface looks like a small bazaar of highly technical material. And I know that most of you can appreciate how cool is this, that you have all these shiny tools around you, and you are organizing for the next day and thinking about what incredible adventure are in front of you. And then when you have organized everything, you can really chill out and enjoying the sun, enjoying the view, speaking about future plans, having some comments about the day and stuff like that. Then when the sun goes down, it's time for the common dinner, where you can hear from the other teams what they have done. You can exchange some food, and here really the value provided by this small kitchen tent where you could squeeze inside is incredible. So I would say that if you want to organize a camp in those harsh conditions, it's really necessary to have a bigger base camp tent, let's say, where you can at least eat together and warm a little bit. Because if outside it's I don't know, -5, inside it's a nice 5 10, 15 degrees, depending on the number of people and on how much you are cooking. Then if you want a little bit of privacy, you can go in front of your own tent, do a nice tea before going to sleep, enjoying the moon coming out. And as you can see, the moon, the shiny moon lights up the mountains around. So it's really a very nice environment, very harsh, very cold, but really enjoyable, because it's different than anything else that I have seen in mountains up to this moment. I think that glaciers really have this soul of being something that moves, something that changes quite fast. So it's a nice place where to stay. Then before going to sleep, you can just observe the Milky Way on you and wondering about how this will look like when, for example, Starlink satellites will be released, and you will not be able anymore to just enjoy the stars as they are. And then time to go to sleep. So yeah, here you can see an example of a Playboy tent. No, just joking, because this small rabbit is the symbol of this company, and it really looks like a Playboy thing, but it's not related. And then repeat the circle. So next day, next adventure, and that's it. So we usually went to sleep quite early because you need to wake up at 6:30, so you go to sleep at 9, for example. So regarding topography, this was the second goal of the expedition. This is an example of the results of caves. This is the Moulin M8, the one that I showed before. And here, a big thank to Felix that made the survey, the drawings. And we can see that it's not a very deep cave for normal cave standards, but still 77 meters under the surface of the glacier, it's still impressive. And I don't know how deep is the glacier on its own, but our dream was to be able to reach some collector that somehow would connect multiple moulins. We didn't succeed this year, but who knows what can happen in the future. So regarding photography, this was my main goal for the expedition, because I really like to make photos in caves. And there is one major difference between between making photos in the ice or in normal caves, and this that the light can pass through the ice. And this is when I noticed this, it was really exciting, because this opened a whole new world of photographic opportunities. Additionally, since everything is white, everything is very bright. So it's enough to have a little power, a flash that is not too strong, and yet you can have a wonderful light all around you. So how does it look yes, regarding the lens, my suggestion is to have a wide lens, because the ambient is quite narrow, and because of that, a wide lens enables you to really show what is the cave about. So when you are inside, it's really very nice. You have everything is white and blue, everything is clean, there is no mud, and the light passes through the ice and creates these very nice effects. As you can see here, this was Moulin M5. You have a meander, and at the bottom of this meander you have water with a little bit of ice on top of it, and this is why you always try to be on the rope to move. Additionally, you will recognize this pattern on the surface of the ice that reminds of the same thing that you can find in normal caves. So yeah, it makes sense because the process is similar. So this is ice melting due to air, and in the caves you have rocks melting due to water. Okay, the time scale is different, but the effect is similar. So when you photograph from the top, this is what you get. And so very nice. You can notice that the cave were quite deep. So this was, I would say, more than 20-meter shaft. And these blue and white colors that mix together. And it's important here to have a flash that gives you some counterlight. Otherwise, you will have just a very dark bottom and you will not be able to see these patterns. Additionally, in this picture, you can see how does it look like to rig. So you always have 2 ice screws, and on those ice screws you do a double Moulin in this case. And you use these kind of clips that are better if you have this iron part that is not closed like in normals, because this can froze, and if you have everything frozen, then you can't open it and you lose time, while this is much faster and effective. Here we see again Gigi at the bottom of M8, and here we have a good example of this light passing through the ice. And here we have a flash just in this point and at the maximum power, and the light just reaches us and it turns into blue. So it's very, very exciting photographic opportunity. And here we can see a meander and the Felix inside of it, and the same thing on the left. So yeah, basically you explore those meanders until they are too narrow to continue the exploration. Then this is the Bédier that we visited. So this is like canyoning, but you're canyoning in ice and water, and there is nothing else around you. So again, the colors made by light are, I mean, you see them, everything is blue, everything is white. You walk and you on the bottom, and you try as much as possible not to walk in the middle, because otherwise you can just finish in water. So yes, in some places you can do that, in others you can't. And in fact, some of us finished having wet feet because they went underwater. And these other structures that you can find, so majestic waves of ice frozen in time that you just explore. I mean, really nice and different from anything else. Then you have, okay, so some more kitsch images that you can make if you like Matterhorn and ice. And still exploring Bédier, that this image gives you a scale of the dimensions of those canyons. So those are 2 people inside of this U-shaped channel, and it's really nice when you can walk in the channel and turn, and then you find yourself in the same place where you started. And it reminds me of some Amazonic rivers that have these U-turns very strong. And inside it looks like this, and there is always time to taking some more funny pictures and here you can see how people are smiling, because I mean, you don't see these kind of things very often. And I really think that when we speak about climate change, for example, and we speak about the fact that many ecosystems or many environments on Earth will disappear or change, we never focus enough on the fact that we are losing beauty. I mean, the more ecosystems we have, the more different heterogeneous areas of the world there are, the more beauty there is, because beauty is related to how things are uncommon. So when you're in an extremely uncommon place, extremely different than anything else, everything is nicer. And this is an example of contact cave. So again, the light here is very nice, very blue and greenish, and it's an experience to be down here. But now we have seen some photos of the surface of the caves. We can say that the surface is nice as well. So this is early in the morning view on the Monte Rosa and the nearby mountains. And main part of the glacier just going down with this light. And regarding the technique, so this is when you are on top of the glacier, this is an easy glacier, so there aren't many crevasses. It's not a dangerous one, and you can safely just walk around without too many problems. The only thing that you need to care attention is trying not to walk on the flat parts, because those could be just ice sheets on top of some water, and again they could break and you could fall into water. Now, this of course depends on the situation, because if it was if it is cold enough, this is safe to walk on top of them. If it is not, then this could happen. So during our expedition, it was cold enough, and you could just safely walk on top of them. And what is another peculiarity is that the surface is full of little tiny details, very delicate details that creates very interesting combinations with the light. And on some perspectives, you have this feeling of being in a boat and just sailing around the glacier. And when you zoom out a little bit and you see people walking on the surface, you have this feeling that they are walking on another planet, because they just disappear between the waves and reappear, and you don't have a scale to understand how big things are, except if you have some people around. Then you could find some rocks that are at the bottom of some bigger holes, and I think that this is due to the fact that this rock is warmed up by the sun, so it digs it. But I could be wrong. I'm not really an expert in glaciers, but still the effect is very interesting when you see them. Then the contrast between the ice and the flow of the clouds is really eye-catching. So I tried to give this impression through this picture. And then those crystals that you can find if you search for them carefully, and we can see that those are hexagons. Those are a couple of millimeters big, so really small details, small delicate details on this incredibly big glacier. So glaciers have this beauty that is really on multiple scales. They are beautiful watched from the far away. They're beautiful when you check those little details, and they create these light situations with ice that are really enjoyable. Stuff like this, and these small pools of crystals that you can find around, very nice. So regarding the logistics of the camp, this was the starting point. So as you can see, Daria, my girlfriend, is not really sure that I will be able to fit everything. Okay, the cat is safe. I didn't bring it with me. And yet, at the end, I managed to squeeze everything in these 3 packages, but for 41 kilos of things. And this was, I mean, quite heavy to carry around. Then the trip is really enjoyable. You arrive to Zermatt, and then from there you take a train. This train brings you quite high, and then you have a very easy path that you follow, arrive to some stairs that are quite tricky to do when you have this heavy bag on your back, because they are quite steep, and because of that the bag is, you tend to lose your equilibrium, so you need to pay some attention while you go down. Then this view opens under your feet. You arrive to the camp, you set up your tent, and you are good to go. So this is the home that I had for 1 week. Additionally, you have plenty of water. The point that usually the surface of water is frozen, so you need to break it with a rock or with some ice axe in order to access it. Then this is what happens if you forgot your bottle outside of the tent during the night. Simply, if it's full of water, the water becomes ice, the ice expands, and you lose your aluminum bottle. So pay attention. Never leave nothing outside of the tent if you don't want it to break. If you want to take some time lapses or longer exposures, this is how you protect your camera. So you have a jacket that is not on you, but it's on the camera to protect it. Not sure how smart is this, but it worked to protect the camera, so I'm fine with that. And then, since we are in Switzerland, we have all the commodities of this world. And the last day of the camp, we rented a helicopter that we used to bring all the heavy stuff back to Zermatt so that we could walk without heavy loads to the train. Here we can see a nice contrast between the usual Zermatt population, so quite fancy people, and cavers coming back from 1 week or more of caving. So you can imagine how stark the contrast was in the train itself. And then, of course, a nice beer or coffee together with the others in Zermatt just to finish the expedition. So the similarity that I was talking about will be well known to people from Trieste. So this is the glacier and this is the sea when you have Bora, and I really like this similarity between those two things. I really had the feeling of, I mean, the best thing that I can do to describe a glacier is that you take the sea at a moment with strong winds and you instantly just froze it, and then you get this effect. Additionally, we are organizing a photo exhibition. We are not still sure that we will manage, but you will be able to see it in Hangar Theater in Trieste. So I hope that we will manage to do it. So check anyway those guys, because they really rocks. Thank you for your attention, and I would like to thank again Jeff for the organization, Gigi for inviting me in the first place, and Marco for borrowing me the ice screws and the tools. Thank you.
Thank you, Domagoj. And if you have some questions, just add comments in Facebook page, or comment the YouTube video. I have some questions arrived via different way. So first question was about the morphology. All the moulins are the same, like with shaft in the beginning and then the meander, are all the same morphology, or the same are they similar, or are they different between them? You told that there are more like 10, I think, moulins on the glacier.
So the one that I visited were similar macroscopically. So you had this initial shaft and then some meander that intercepts the shaft that you can explore. But then there are, differences, because some has larger volumes, some are smaller, some have active water in them, some doesn't. It's a little bit like caves, right? So even if they look similar, then when you're into them, you find some details that are different, and the way that you move is different, and things like this. In some of them, you can find some crystals, in others you don't. So it's quite heterogeneous, I would say, even if the main structure is the same.
Another question was connected to, the average temperature inside the ice cave.
So I didn't measure it, but I would say around 0 degrees, because you are under the ice, so you are isolated from the environment, and so this is independent than the outside temperature.
A third question is, you are divided in groups. Every group has its own target to check, or all the groups are doing the same?
Depending on the number of people at the camp, usually we divide it in groups of 3, 4 people, and each of us had a different goal for the day. So one or more than one moulin, or going to the Bédier, to the canyon, or going to the contact caves, stuff like that. Because the point is that if you want to explore a deep moulin, for example, this M8 that I showed, you need a lot of material. So if the goal of the day is this, then only one group can do this kind of exploration, and the others do more surface things where you don't need material. And so usually multiple groups, multiple targets.
We have a question about Spelaborco. What was the temperature during the day outside, not in the caves?
So outside, it was warm in the afternoon because we were very, very lucky with the weather. So it was sunny. So if you remember the photo of the base camp, I don't know the temperature exactly. So it's sunny, you feel good, but you still have all your clothes on you because it's not so hot. But definitely better than Canine in winter, let's say.
Last question. You made the measurements of the cave, of the ice cave. Are they changing during the years?
Yes, they are. Now, since this was my first camp, now I don't know how they changed from the previous versions. But according to the people that are veterans of these kind of expeditions, they change even by a big margin. And some can even disappear because, the entrance close, new ones are created. And it's very exciting because I have the feeling that you can witness with your naked eyes year by year processes that in normal caves takes thousands of years. So it's a really interesting experience that it's like traveling in time, Evo.
Okay, we have another question from YouTube. What dangerous situations did you face?
So actually, I would say it's quite a safe kind of caving because, first of all, no rock can fall on you because there are no rocks in the first place. So I would say no really dangerous situation happened to me. But again, the point is that this glacier is a very easy glacier, so you don't have these snow traps, for example, where you have a snow bridge that could collapse when you pass, and so you need to tie yourself to other people and these kind of dangers. The bigger danger that you can have is that you sleep, like you could sleep in any activity in mountains during the winter, and you can fall on some rock and break your leg, but there is no extreme danger, in my opinion, in this kind of place. It's safer than, I repeat, for who knows, canine or caving into mountains during winter, I think it's safer because there are no avalanches. You are very near civilization, so I think that the same type of expedition in some remote place like Himalaya or Patagonia can be dangerous, but because you're isolated. So I don't know. We had a plan that if the weather turned to be bad, we would just go away before the storm come. While if you are isolated, you can't do that.
Last questions I have here. Which is the best period during the year to visit the ice caves?
So it's November, October, November, because you want it needs to be cold as possible, because otherwise you have water, but you don't want snow, because if there is snow, it's not safe to walk on the glacier and the caves are closed. So yeah, this end of October is the usual period for this kind of explorations in Switzerland, in Europe. So for other glaciers around the world, I don't know.
Okay. If we have other questions, just comment. Have still one or a couple of minutes, and then we close this first episode of BoeganLIVE. I'll say you to follow the page of Commissione Grotta Eugenio Boegan and subscribe to the YouTube channel for the next episodes. And we have no more questions. So thank you, Domagoj. Thank you for your presentation. And we are waiting. We're looking for the photographs and for the exhibition of your photos.
So thank you all for your attention, and I hope that you enjoyed this presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Domagoj, and thank you all of you that followed this live. Ciao, bye.
Ciao.